Sermon 105 is to those who have divided and those who have avoided. Yes, it was to some people who had to deal with Bedouins and who went off into Syria and who tended to be of the southern Semites. But the lesson is that a person is to live up to the opportunity of dignity that has been presented to them. They are to fight the good fight and to not just allow people to drive them away from what is rightly theirs. Saying 156. Reminds us to think of excuses for other people's ignorance. One thing is that sometimes we don't know the reason why some people are in a certain situation. I, for example, know of somebody who forgot how to say their prayers. And not everything about this person can be excused, but there's certainly some limitation going on there that didn't have to be that way in previous times. And saying 157 reminds us that when we behave well, it's as a discouragement to those who aren't behaving well. And I'm not seeing 158 here. We are reminded that we can react equitably upon those who have done wrong. But that doesn't mean that some things are to be done, like in some African, Asian, and European cultures, they would punish a rapist by raping the rapist. And this would be a formal thing, not just perverts in prison. It was a thing where they would formally do that in response. And there's other examples of foul or whatever sorts of things that you don't do as, against people. Now you can regard the wrongdoer with kindness, but certainly you can punish them in that regards. So when somebody faces a criminal punishment, one of the things that you should probably learn to do is to, one, regard it as if they have paid their due. Don't go around criticizing people about, Prophet Muhammad pointed that out, is that if somebody has faced the prescribed punishment according to Islam for something, whether it's an execution or something they survive or whatever, don't talk bad about them like, oh, they did something wrong. You're just supposed to presume they have paid for their deed. And about a position that we should be aware of is the position of the the rightly guided, the true spiritual leaders of the community. Because there is a difference between, for example, A'imma, and it's generally regarded as Khulafa, because Khulafa, ideally, it's, as we've seen in earlier narrations, that, the rightly guided ones. So there was no conflict. Ali may have said, it would have been better had they chosen me and I have more right over it, but I'm not going to cause a conflict over it. And so again and again and again, well, I mean, it only happened 3 times, but he didn't make any further issue after that point. It was only, he says, as long as they're rightly guided, Caliph, so I'm going to leave it alone. And so we see today, particularly in my country, there are prayer leaders and scholars that should be regarded over the government in terms of what's right and wrong. I'm not saying you break the law or anything like that. But, I mean, they would have a better idea. But, as I said, in Islam, we can go direct. If there's not a good scholar or something around, there's still the good books. We have the Quran unedited. We have so many sayings that there's more than enough out there for a person to be guided in any particular issue.